Hey there. Welcome to episode 36 of Toy Talk with Mike and Chad. I'm Chad.
And I am Mike. And this is our third episode that we shot in one night. So I will probably space them out over 2 weeks or so. So it's not that we have been wearing the same clothes.
Yeah, I just don't do laundry anymore.
It might look that way when you see the thumbnails because we'll be wearing these same clothes.
Yeah.
Episode after episode, but this was all just one night. But I had so many toys that I'm behind on that we're trying to hammer out some of these videos. So yeah, we previously reviewed some G.I. Joes tonight. Then we reviewed some movie-related toys for all the new movies that we've seen. Now this is a true mishmash of just whatever's left.
Whatever.
Yeah. So the first one I guess I'll talk about is this one here. So I have ordered one of the new Spawn figures. This is Monolith. This is one of the many versions of Spawn. He's a newer character that was just introduced recently. And as you can see, I've already opened him up. But this is one of the ones I felt a little bad because I pre-ordered this from Big Bad Toy Store, which is where I buy a lot of my toys online. But they used to be really on the ball, but ever since COVID, they seem to be a little slower. Sometimes they get things way later than other places. So I still support them as much as I can, but I have to be realistic. So I had this figure not only on pre-order, but then it actually came in stock. And they say, we have it for you. And they don't charge you until they get it in stock. So they charge my credit card, and then they put it in your pile of loot. And it's a great service that they do there in that, you know, you can save on shipping by saying, okay, don't ship this yet. Wait till I get like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 items piled up and then ship it together. And then they give you a good deal on the shipping. Mm-hmm. So this was sitting in my pile of loot for a couple of weeks, waiting for enough stuff to accumulate. And then I saw it at GameStop locally. And when I knew it was a big figure, but when I saw the size of this box, and I would have thrown this out by now, but I wanted to keep it to show you on video. Like, it's a big ass box. Bigger than it needs to be because the figure's not this big. But I was like, I'm going to buy this now and cancel my pre-order, and they had to refund me, give me store credit essentially, because this would have increased the box they had to mail to me substantially, and I would have probably got dinged a lot more at customs when it crossed the border. So yeah, I always feel bad. It's one thing to cancel a pre-order, but it's a whole other thing to cancel an order that they've been holding for me already for a couple of weeks because they probably have charges associated with like reversing credit card charges.
On sale too.
Well, that's the other thing. He was $49.99 on Big Bad Toy Store US price, which converts to probably closer to like $64 or something like that. I got him here for $50 Canadian. Plus at GameStop, I have like an Onyx card, which I get like a 10% discount or something. So yeah, I actually got them for quite a bit less because I got them for like 48 or something Canadian as opposed to 65. So anyway, enough about the box. Let's take a look at the figure. Here he is. He is big, beefy,
girthy.
He's cool.
Like, okay, he's definitely not as big as that box, so it makes me question why he was in a box that big, but
yeah,
he's still a decent size.
But at least, like, because that's it. There's a lot of larger characters in the Spawn universe, and there's some of these ones that you buy these at our local GameStop, and they're like $70 and plus. So at first I thought, they're just going to put him in this jumbo box so they can charge me $70 for him. But because he's smaller than some of the other big figures, they did price him accordingly. I don't know why they made the box so big, but
right away,
yeah,
I'm annoyed.
Okay.
Typical McFarlane. Like,
yeah,
the shoulders. Come on now.
He doesn't move all that well.
He doesn't move. Like, this one, there's very little give. I mean, you can move his arm. I just hate impeded movement.
I know, me too. But, like, Spawn figures used to essentially be statues. The fact that they move at all anymore, I think is good. And, like, I don't play with these things. I don't like buying them if they're totally rigid. But as long as, like, he can, like, swing his arms and bend his elbows, I'm not too bothered by it. So he doesn't move very well. And he also doesn't have any accessories. Like, what you see is what you get.
I do like the overall look of him, though. Like, he's got a pretty badass looking face. Was he released in the main Spawn comic, or was he in one of the sub-Spawns?
I believe he appeared in the main Spawn comic book. I collect all of them. Like, how many years has it been now? Like, maybe 2 years? But, like, for 20 plus years, the Spawn comic book has just been Spawn. Occasionally, there's a spin-off or a miniseries, but essentially it's just one Spawn book every month for 20 plus years. About 2 years ago, the creator of Spawn decided to expand the universe, and they had one big thick comic book called Spawn's Universe, which introduced all these new characters and new storylines, and then it branched out into 4 comic books. So you've got regular Spawn, King Spawn, Gunslinger Spawn, which is his own character, and then you've got the Scorched, which is a team book of all the other like side characters from the Spawn universe. And they're all good. Like, I enjoy them. They're fun. The art is really good, and all of them, he's not skimping out on any of them. And he's been introducing new characters like crazy. And it's like he sometimes there seems to be no synergy between like the toys and the media.
Yeah.
Like, you're watching a movie and you're like, why don't the toys look like the movie? But when it comes to McFarlane and Spawn, like, it's his thing. I feel like he's creating these characters to make toys, and maybe, some people might feel it's a dirty way to do it because it's a cat or something. But to me, I love it. It's like the guy that's creating the comic book character on the page is the guy that's making the toy of it. So they look like they're supposed to look. They come out right on time, because sometimes, if there's a new character introduced from Marvel, Hasbro's going to play catch up, and there's like, a year plus runtime for them to make that new popular character. As soon as Tom decides he wants to make a new character, he can start working on the toy, and it looks exactly as it's supposed to look. So his characters are coming out very timely. So, like, last year, one of the new figures / characters was a Plague Spawn, which is very Carnage-like. Like, Spawn himself is already very symbiote-like, but Plague Spawn was very Carnage-y, and this guy is very Venom-y. Like, so I think he's cool. I'm a fan of the symbiotes over at Marvel, and I think he's pretty sweet.
Not that I was feeling him up or anything, but he's like all hard plastic, except for his butt. His butt is squishy.
Yeah,
that's kind of weird.
Yeah, he does have a squishy, kind of a soft rubbery butt. Like, he's a design. I've seen McFarlane say, like, he designs his stuff basically for 12-year-old boys. So people might say, like, why does Spawn have so many chains on him? It doesn't make sense. And he's like, because chains are cool. Kids like chains. And so that's his thought process. When you look at this guy, he doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, I don't know why he's got chains on his belt, and he's got all these like weird canisters. Never in his comic book appearances has he ever thrown like a gas grenade or anything, but he's got these canisters. He's got these gigantic skulls on his shoulders, his shoulder pads. Again, it doesn't need to make sense functionally. Todd just designs them to be cool. Although there is one thing about this guy, which I've seen him now in a bunch of comic books. I really like him in the comic books. I really like this toy. When I saw this one up for pre-order, I was already thinking, like, this guy is got a very good chance to be on my best of the year list just for his design alone, even if the articulation is lacking or anything like that. I still think he's a contender. I like this thing a lot. But one thing that I never really noticed until I got him home in my hands is that, like, Spawn is clearly wearing like kind of a symbiote suit. Like, the black stuff comes off of him. You know that Spawn is a human being underneath of him. This guy here, when you look at him up close, and I'll do a splice in, you'll see his suit he's got this red-orange skin, and it's veiny. Like, that's his skin. And then when you look at this like Spawn symbol that all like Spawns have, this white, I'm looking at him like, so he's like a big naked orange guy, and then he's wearing that. It looks like Borat's bathing suit. Like, what is he wearing?
Yeah.
Like, if he had an orange bodysuit and that was just a design logo on it, I'd be fine with it. But knowing that that's supposed to be his bare skin, it leads me to wonder, like, what the hell is going on here? And it's a little disturbing to think about.
Maybe Todd was getting a little kinky or something. I don't know.
I don't know.
I can't unsee it now that you've said that.
Yeah, you can't. That's the problem with him. So I'm sorry if I've ruined him for you. But it's a weird thing to kind of wrap your head around. But anyway, he's cool. I'm going to do a splice and we'll take a closer look at him. And we'll take a look at the next figure. So here's a closer look at Monolith. And yeah, he's a big guy. And yeah, lots of cool detailing and stuff. If we bring him in here and take a closer look at his head. So you can see he's got a very Venom-like appearance. With the teeth showing through and the kind of white pattern around the eyes. You know, very much like Spawn. Or sorry, like Venom. And like Spawn. But yeah, especially when Mac Gargan, the Scorpion, wore the Venom symbiote, he had eyes within the eyes, and that's what this really kind of looks like. Another cool detail is there you see like little skulls. He's got like almost like a little mohawk made up of little skulls, which is kind of cool. And then he's got these big, huge skulls that look like saber-toothed tigers or something on his shoulders. Lots of spikes and chains hanging off his belt. See, he's got some articulation on his toes, so you can pose him that way. Single jointed on the elbows and the knees and stuff, just the one pin. But here, I'll just quickly show you the range of motion that Chad was kind of talking about. These shoulder pads kind of hinder it, so you can only lift his arms up. Well, that much. There is a little bit of give, but you can't do full side by side. And his knees, they bend about that much. It's not a ton because the skin hits the kind of the armor there. But anyway, I think this is a great figure. I think he's really big. He's really cool. If I bring in a like a kind of a standard 6-inch figure, here he is next to Indiana Jones, so you can see just how large he is. So yeah, I still think this guy's gonna be a contender for my best of the year list. Just because he looks great, he's unique. It's the first time we've ever gotten this character. So even with the little Borat bathing suit, I still think he's pretty awesome. Alright, so the next thing I want to show you. I know most people that tune in for action figure videos don't care about Funko Pops. If anything, sometimes there's a hatred towards Funko Pops. I buy them sometimes. I have a huge collection of them, but I actually do buy them pretty rarely. That collection has accumulated over many, many years. But I had to buy this guy when I saw him. This is just a Blockbuster logo, or I guess he's more supposed to be a VHS tape from Blockbuster Video. And it's the kind of stupid kind of Funko Pop. Because they do this with all kinds of like food boxes and stuff now. Like I have another Funko Pop that's a box of Kraft Dinner, that's a Funko Pop. And I can understand if that was what the mascot was. But like there was never a Blockbuster Videotape mascot or a Kraft Dinner box mascot. It's just lazy and stupid. But I worked at Blockbuster Video for 12 years. If I hadn't, we probably never would have met.
Exactly.
Because over 12 years, and I started there pretty much right out of high school, all the way, pretty much up to when I was 30. So like all of my 20s, I was at Blockbuster. I made a lot of great friends there. I had a lot of great times, and I remember it very, very fondly. Not only was it, during my youth when I had met a lot of cool friends and worked with a lot of good people, but yeah, it was the years when I was like going to the bars and stuff. And anyway, so one of the guys I worked with at Blockbuster was Elliot, who we have talked about on the show a few times. And it was, even though me and Elliot haven't really hung out in a number of years, because he moved away to become an RCMP officer. I didn't see him for like a decade or something. But we've remained Facebook friends and stuff like that. And you were Elliot's friend, and it was kind of through Elliot that we came together. And when we first started hanging out, like 2 years ago or whatever it was.
It was actually last March, because it was the Batman.
Was it just a year ago?
Yeah, it was the Batman movie.
Okay. Seems like it's been a while. But yeah, when we first started hanging out, you were like, I met you way back in the Blockbuster days, because you came to a party.
House party you were having.
Yeah, I was at a house party. I think my girlfriend was throwing it, and I invited Elliot, and I was like, yeah, come. And I think he must have said, can I bring my friend? I was like, sure. Now, I was a bit too drunk. I don't really remember meeting you back then. But all that is to say, I'm very nostalgic for Blockbuster. Mm-hmm. Because I was there for so long. There's still a lot of people in my life that refer to me as like Blockbuster Mike. Every time Blockbuster's in the news, like there was that new Blockbuster series on
Yeah.
Netflix last year. I must have had 50 people send me the link to it. Like, did you see this? Did you see this? So when I saw this was coming out, I had to get it.
Bro, I lived that.
Well, I didn't.
No,
I didn't. That Blockbuster show.
Yeah, it was
sucks.
not very good.
Although I did just watch a Canadian movie called I Like Movies. Have you seen anything for this?
I've not.
I rented it. It's a new release, although it did come out in 2022 technically. Although I don't know if there's anywhere that we could have actually watched it in 2022. I just watched it last weekend. It was good. If you have a chance to watch this Canadian movie, go support Canadian cinema. But it was about a kid that works in a video store. It wasn't Blockbuster, but it was clearly a take on Blockbuster. Yeah. And it was set during the 90s or whatever, which is that's the problem I had with the Blockbuster show on Netflix. Is it was set like modern day, and that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one's set in the 90s. It's about this kid who gets the job at the video store, and it's kind of a coming of age movie. But everything about it, like they were returning movies to the shelf, and they've got this big gray plastic cart. I'm like, we had that exact cart to return the movies, and like the conversations they're having with the customers and everything. It felt so like it brought me right back. So it was a fun movie, and man, Blockbuster was just good times. So I'll do a quick close up of this guy. But there's not much to review with a Funko Pop, but anyway, so that's that guy. So here's a closer look at the Blockbuster guy. So you can see he's part of the Ad Icons series, number 187 in the series. And yeah, he is just a VHS tape case. And with googly eyes and a smile, he's got a little bowl of popcorn. Yeah, Be Kind, Rewind. So yeah, he makes me very nostalgic. There's not much to say about Funko Pops. There's no articulation. You know, what you see is what you get. But, and this guy is cute. Like, I like him. Having the little VHS tape with the face. You know, it's very clearly Blockbuster, but, you know, it would have been kind of cool if they had done, for those of you old enough to remember, they used to have some commercials with a kind of a CG guinea pig and a rabbit, and those characters were called Ray and Carl. People went nuts for those things. We only had a few of the commercials, but we sold little plush Ray and Carls that talked, and yeah, people bought them up like hotcakes. Kind of a sad little story is that, I don't know exactly what happened, but I think maybe like Blockbuster's deal with the voice actors had run out or something, and we could no longer sell the plushies with the voice actors' recordings. So all of the Ray and Carls we had left in our inventory, we had to tear them apart. We had to like rip the heads off before we could throw them in the garbage. So yeah, there was one night at Blockbuster where I just spent the evening destroying little stuffed guinea pigs and rabbits. Anyway, that's just a little aside. I have so many Blockbuster stories. I could talk about it all day long. Really good times, really good friends. Fun little toy. Now, another one that you might find a little weird that I picked up is...
it's only weird if you make it weird.
It's this one. The Bionic Woman reaction figure. So, do you know the Bionic Woman?
Yes.
All right, well, I don't know. I barely know the Bionic Woman, to be honest with you. But... because this show, I think it ran from like 76 to 78. I was born in 1978. You would have been born in what, 83 or something?
82.
82. So like this show was off the air before we were born. It was a very, very popular show. It's a spin-off of another really popular show, The $6 Million Man, which was about a bionic man. Again, way before my time. And then they introduced a bionic woman in that show. And then she got a spin-off. It ran for 3 years. But then they made a couple of made-for-television movies about her, which aired in like the mid-'80s. And that was probably where I think
that's right.
That's probably where I saw her. Although I couldn't remember anything about those movies. If you ask me any details about them, I don't know. But the reason why I had to pick this up, and like I did, when this came out about a year ago, probably, and I considered ordering it at the time, but reaction figures are like $30, and they're not cheap. And I was like, you know what? I have a little bit of a nostalgic tie to this, but it's not worth the $30 to me. But then our local comic shop, Strange Adventures, had it on for half price over at their Dartmouth location. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go grab that for whatever it was, $12 or something. But the reason I have kind of a connection to this figure is when we were little kids. So this might have been, maybe when I was like 4 years old or something. Me and my brother had paper dolls of... I had the Bionic Woman, and my brother Doug had the $6 Million Man. Who nowadays, whenever they do a remake of him, they just call him the Bionic Man. Because $6 Million Man doesn't sound that expensive anymore. But anyway, they were weird little things where it was like basically like kind of a rigid cardboard figure. It was probably about 12 inches tall. And I had her, and she was just there in her broad panties. And she came with different outfits. Like, I think she probably had this outfit. Then I think she had like sort of a tracksuit. I think she had like an evening gown or something. And it was just those dresses, little paper doll with little tabs. So you fold the tabs over and they were stiff. So she might have even been in a pose kind of like this, and the dress would have to be shaped like that so it fits over her. And it's going to be just one of my earliest memories, probably because I found it a little, titillating that, look, I have a lady in her underwear. Except she had one of her legs and one of her arms was exposed, like, not fleshy, but, like, you saw all the inner workings of the mechanics. Yeah. So, yeah, I had this weird, like, essentially naked woman paper doll with a metal arm and a metal leg. And I don't know what happened to it. I'm sure it's long been destroyed. It probably got destroyed before I was, like, 5 years old. But, it's just weird that I had that thing, and that's really the only thing I know about her. I don't remember the movies. I don't have nostalgic ties for the character. I didn't particularly have a crush on the actress that played her or anything, but I think it's just that paper doll that I was like, I think I have to buy this new version of the figure.
Not that it's related, but anytime I hear, like, the Bionic Man or the Bionic Woman, all I can think about is the 80s cartoon, the Bionic 6.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't know if that was tied to it at all, but it wouldn't be surprised if it was at least inspired, but it might have been made by the same, like, I don't know who owns this, like Warner Brothers or something, but if wouldn't be surprised if Bionic 6 was made by the same company that owns the rights to these. So maybe there is some sort of tie. But the Bionic 6 was, I don't remember much about that either, but I do remember the toys and stuff. Anyway, so that's her.
Pretty cool.
So here is a closer look at the Bionic Woman. And you can see her name was Jamie Summers, the name of the character. And so, yeah, this is what the actress looked like. I do not think they did a very good job of capturing her likeness in this figure. She looks kind of just like a soccer mom. And I know part of it is she's got that kind of like 70s hair and the 70s outfit. But it's more than that. I think just like that face sculpt, she doesn't look like a young woman. She looks a little frumpy. The back of the package, you see, so that's the figure we've got here, and then there's a cross-sell. There was another figure in this line, the Fembot, so it's a female figure with the face removed, and it's got kind of a robotic face. I did not pick that one up, because I have no recollection of the Fembot, other than from, like, Austin Powers. So I am going to open this figure up, so why don't we pop this open, and then we'll take another look at her. So here is Jamie Summers, the Bionic Woman, outside of the packaging. There's really not a whole lot to be said. All of these reaction figures from Super 7 are done in that kind of Kenner Star Wars style with 5 points of articulation. So her arms move forward and backwards, her legs forwards and not really backwards, and her head should turn, and it does ever so slightly, but this long hair kind of hinders it. It hits her shoulders, so she can barely move her head. So she basically has 4 points of articulation. So yeah, I bought this strictly because I was nostalgic about that paper doll I used to have. And it's kind of a fun little oddity for my collection. This will make a good figure for when I'm doing my Instagram posts and I do those little dioramas and whatnot. She will make a good like civilian that I could use in some of my posts. So anyway, not much more to say about this. Now I bought some more reaction figures. I don't know how you feel about these dudes, but I bought the Black Hole reaction figures. So there was 3 of them in this set. So there's Vincent, Old Bob, and Maximilian. So for one, I love the blister cards these guys come on.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Like the fact that they're shaped like the characters themselves. Now, have you ever seen the Black Hole?
I don't think I have.
So this is another one that's going way back into my childhood. This is a Disney movie that came out, and I want to say like 81, 82, something like really, really early days. And the thing is, I think they made it basically after Star Wars. They're like, we can make our own Star Wars, so let's do it. That's why they have the cutesy little droids and all that sort of stuff. But it was nowhere near as fun as Star Wars. It was closer to a Star Trek. It was a little more like talky and cerebral than fun. Anyway, I had not seen this thing since I was a little kid. My brother Doug had a comic book adaptation of the movie. So I probably remember that more than the actual movie itself, was being able to flip through this big oversized comic book. But we had some of these toys when we were kids. So I had Vincent, and the toy looked a lot like this. I think it was maybe a little smaller. It was pretty close to the same size, except it moved a little bit more. These are reaction figures from Super 7, so they're intentionally have very limited articulation. Mm-hmm. But the one I had as a kid, it's like little legs, these little balls that it has at the bottom. They could be extended for legs, and his little claws came out, and his head turned. You could tuck his head into his body. I actually don't know what type of articulation this figure has, because as you can see, I have not opened it yet, but I probably will. But anyway, so this is a lot like the one I had as a kid.
Would that be on Disney Plus now, do you know?
It is.
I'm going to watch that.
And the funny thing is, so a year ago, I don't know if you watched this video, because this was probably before we were hanging out, but I got some toys from, I think it was Diamond Select Toys did some of these, and they were like big, like 6-7 inch versions. So I bought these same 3 characters, Bob, Vincent, and Max, and I did a video where I reviewed these things. And in that video, I had to confess that yes, I'm buying these figures that are kind of obscure and kind of niche, but I don't want to pretend to be a poser and say I know this movie or I like this movie. Because sure, I remember it. I remember having the toys as a kid, but I don't remember any of the specifics of the movie. I hadn't seen it since I was like a toddler. And it was out on Disney Plus even then. And I said, as soon as I finish reviewing these figures, I'm going to go watch Black Hole. Anyway, I didn't until probably about 3 months ago. I finally rewatched the Black Hole. So now it's fresh in my head. I do remember it. I don't think it was anything to call home about. It was fine, but it was a little dry. It was interesting to see some of the actors in it, or some familiar faces, which you might know from other things. Like, the guy's name's escaping me right now. The guy that played, like, Norman Bates in Psycho.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, he's there. And I think I've only ever really seen him in Psycho. So it's just, there's a couple actors like that. You're like, okay, interesting. It wasn't a bad movie. Anyway, so yeah, go watch it on Disney Plus. And yeah, so Maximilian, he's the bad guy robot. He's very cool. Now, what's kind of a bummer, though, about these is the 2 toys that I had when I was a kid was Vincent, and I also had, I think, what they call the Sentry Drone. They're these, like, robot security guards or something, and they look really cool. They kind of look like stormtroopers, except they're kind of this maroon purple. Do you know what I'm talking about? Or
yeah.
So I had that toy as a kid. I got rid of these figures, and I've long since regretted it, because I think they can sell for quite a bit on the secondary market. And I'm like, why did I get rid of those? I always thought it was super cool. Like, whenever I played with my Star Wars figures, I would often integrate my Black Hole figures into it. So when I got rid of those figures, like, I kept my Star Wars, but I didn't keep my Black Hole. And it's just because in my mind, I was like, these aren't Star Wars figures, even though I thought they were super cool. And I still question why I gave away stuff like that. Anyway, now they've given me new versions of these 3 guys twice over now. I have big detailed versions. I have little less detailed versions. But neither company has given me the Sentry. And I don't know that they will. I can't imagine they're going to go back and do a wave 2 of these. Because all that's left to do is really the human characters, which people probably aren't as excited about. So I really wish they had done the Sentry as part of this set. So, anyway. Any more thoughts on them before we move on?
Looks kind of like a Cylon.
Yeah, kind of Cylon-y, kind of garbage can-y. Anyway, they're fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad I got them. And I do open most of my reaction figures, but yeah, I really am torn if I'm going to open these or not, because they look so nice on the cards. Plus, I already have the Diamond Select versions of them. So, to be determined. So it's been about a week since Chad and I talked about these figures, and as you can see, I still have not opened them. At this point, I don't think I'm going to. They just look so good on these cards that I really think I want to find somewhere on the wall that I can just pin them up just like this. Because the bubble gives you a really nice clear image of the toy, so nothing is obscured, and just the packaging is just so nice. So yeah, very, very cool. I like these guys a lot. Vincent especially because, like I said, I had a toy very much like this when I was a kid, and I always regretted getting rid of it. So that's very cool. Bob, a character I always wanted. Maximilian, I think my brother Doug had one when we were kids, but I always thought Maximilian was super cool. So, yeah, really stoked to get all these guys. And all of these characters in the movies, they hover. So you might not be able to really tell from the packaging here, but they all come with their own display bases. You see this guy's got kind of a, looks like an oval-shaped base with 2 pegs that would plug into those holes in his legs. So that would mean he can appear like he's hovering around if you decide to open him up. These guys as well come with a display base with one little peg that you can see the peg running along the side here. So that plugs into the bottom of him so he can get some pretty good height when he's hovering around. So yeah, very cool figures. I might open them someday, but the fact that I have the Diamond Select versions kind of makes it, I don't know, less of a need to handle these guys, I guess. So anyway, I love these things. Very, very cool. Another little oddball. I've been reviewing these Universal Monster figures. So there's 2 different companies putting out Universal Monster figures right now. There's NECA, who's doing really nice, screen accurate, but expensive, like $60 action figures. And then there's Jada, who's doing a little more simplified, but more articulated, smaller, not so screen accurate versions of them. But both are really good. Anyway, this NECA Dracula is one I've been eyeballing for a couple of months now. And Strange Adventures had a 25% off all toys sale last weekend. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going in and grabbing him. I think it's awesome.
That is Bela Lugosi at his finest.
Yeah, so that's his Dracula as portrayed by Bela Lugosi in the original film from, I want to say, 1931. And he comes with a ton of stuff. He's got 3 different heads. He's got different hands. He's got the cape that Chad just broke.
I didn't break.
He's got like a bat, like so he can change him into his bat version if you want. He's got a bottle of wine / blood and a couple of cups with a serving tray. He's got more accessories than you'd ever need. The cape is soft goods, so it like drapes on him really well. You can kind of hold it up if you want to hold it up over his face. You can kind of do all those cool moves. He's kind of got that. I've got him displayed with one hand, so he's kind of doing this hypnotizing hand where he,
zooms in. You get the white line around his eyes.
Well, what's cool is that on the box they have a picture of the action figure. I'll cut in a picture of the box, but they have him lit, so he's just lit around the eyes, which is like a technique they used in the movie to show that he was hypnotizing you. But they didn't give you a head like that. I kind of almost wish they gave you a head that was painted that way with the light around his eyes and the rest of his face kind of darkened out. But anyway, it's a small gripe.
It's got some weight to him. That's a really nice.
Yeah, it's a really nice figure, high quality. With any of NECA's stuff, sometimes they feel a little stiff, and I'm worried that they can be a little delicate, perhaps. But yeah, I think when it comes to the Jada ones, like so far I've gotten the Invisible Man in both, and I've got the Wolfman from both. I'll probably buy the Creature from the Black Lagoon in both. But with Dracula, I've only ever seen the Jada one in pictures, but there's really no comparison. I think when you've got a human actor's likeness, like Frankenstein, where you've got what's his face there, and Boris Karloff, and Bela Lugosi, Jada just can't hold a candle as he's holding his candle to these figures. Like they've done such a good job with the likenesses that I don't really know if I feel the need to buy the Jada version of Dracula. But it remains to be seen. Maybe. But anyway, cool figure.
That's a sick pickup, yeah.
Yeah, very cool figure. We'll talk about him in a little close-up, and then we'll show you something else. So here's a closer look at Dracula. So you can see here, I've got him holding his candle. His cape is technically an accessory because that is removable. He's got a bat with a display base. He's got 2 alternate heads. So here is one where he's looking a little bit angry, like he's about ready to bite you. So that looks pretty good. Then he's got this one here, which is a little bit more neutral. That also looks pretty good. I think this is the one that he had on in the packaging, and I think it's my favorite one. And then also for accessories, he's got all this stuff here. So you can see he's got a bottle of wine or blood. He's got a couple little goblets that have like wine or blood inside of them. He's got a little serving tray, and he's got some alternate hands as well. So lots of cool stuff. Let's take a closer look at the bat before I get him out of here. I don't know if he clips on here super well or if he just kind of rests on there. I don't want to force it, but yeah, the way I've got him on there, he just sort of rests on that stand, so he comes off very easily. But yeah, the bat looks pretty cool. He's got some nice little painted detail on him as well. His eyes and his teeth and everything, so yeah, that's pretty cool. And now, Dracula himself. So again, another really nice head sculpt. This one's got kind of that little smirk on there. You know, just lots of nice little painted detail throughout here. This is the hand where he's kind of doing his hypnotizing thing. He holds the candle there with just a couple of fingers. The cape is really nice. It feels really nice. It flows really nice. It's a good height. Yeah, this guy just looks awesome. And the cape, it clips on there pretty well. Like, it just kind of comes off just like this. So it's got like a hard collar on the top, and then the cape connected like that. So there's no snaps or pegs or holes or anything. You just kind of clip it on there, and it stays in place and looks appropriate. So very, very well done. Now, I don't have the Jada version to compare him to, so the closest thing I can bring out is my old, like, Amigo version. So this was the closest representation to the Bela Lugosi Dracula I've had in my collection up until now. And yeah, this is a fun figure. It kind of serves its purpose, but, you know, I think he's ready to be replaced with this new one from NECA. It's a really, really great figure. I love it. Okay, so we're back. I picked up something else I've been eyeballing for a while. So I've been buying those DC Superpowers figures from McFarlane Toys. And the vehicles. I really wanted the Superman ship that punches and the Batwing vehicle. And I was at Toys R Us the other day, and they had them. Yeah, that's it. And they had them both. And this one was just, not only was this the cheaper one, but also I just came out of the Flash. So the day I went to Toys R Us, I bought Supergirl, which we talked about in our last video, from the Flash movie, and then I bought this because this vehicle is also featured in the Flash movie. So yeah, I love the look of these boxes. They're so nostalgic. It takes me right back to my childhood when the original Superpowers toy line was out. So I've been buying all the Superpowers figures, but I haven't been opening them. I've been leaving them carded. Anyway, so here is. It feels very cheap, like I remember the stuff from when I was a kid. It's very simple. The wings fold up. That's that. It's got a little button on the little trigger on the bottom here, which if you click it, the little claws, you can grab or you can cut the cords of the balloons that are going to spray Smilex gas on everybody. And then, of course, I actually haven't done this yet. I don't want to break it, but the canopy, I'm sure, opens. I don't want to wrestle with it.
Don't risk it.
Yeah. The canopy, I'm sure, will open, and Batman can sit inside. So, knowing that, I had to take a chance and open up Batman. So now, this is my first time actually handling one of these Superpowers figures. And I was a little curious. I'm like, what if I get them out of the package and I don't like them anymore? Because that's sort of what happened to you with DC Multiverse almost. Yep. You were buying them by the dozens, and then you open them up, and you're like, these don't feel great or something, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. For one, Batman looked better in the packaging because his cape wasn't around his neck. I didn't realize it was separate in the package. Like, it's in the plastic behind him, so it looked like he was wearing it. But when you take him out of the package, you have to actually clip it around his neck, and it kind of bunches up. So it looks a little weird. Superman's probably the same, because I think Superman looks really good in the packaging, but if I open him up, then he's probably going to have this bunched up cape. And now I can finally do a side-by-side with the vintage ones, because in the package, these seem like they were just ever so slightly bigger than those small ones. So now I can do a true side-by-side comparison to find out. But yeah, I had to open him up so he can sit inside of his Batwing. But now I don't know, am I going to open up the rest of my Superpowers?
You could always just buy another Batman.
I could. They're pretty cheap. These figures are like
$15.
Yeah, if that. 15 to 18 bucks. I could buy another one. But I have been kind of itching to open them up anyway. So, I don't know. Pretty cool. Now here is a closer look at the Batwing. Now keep in mind it does not include the Batman figure. That is sold separately. But both of these are pretty affordable as far as toys go these days. Here in Canada, where everything is a little bit more expensive than down in the States, like this vehicle here, I got it on sale, and I think it was $24. The figures are about $15. So that's about half price of a standard like 6-inch action figure. Now, mind you, these guys are only 4.5, 5 inches or so, but still, they're very cool. I like these. It's a very fun toy line. It's kind of like the Masters of the Universe Origins that I collect. You know, a lot of the toys I buy nowadays are highly detailed. They're like the best version of these characters we've ever gotten. Whereas these and Masters of the Universe Origins are a throwback to the toys of our childhood. They're simple. They're less detailed. You know, they've got some action features. They're fun. And yeah, these things are definitely fun. So the plane here, you can see it size-wise. It's not huge. Again, let me just bring out a 6-inch figure for maybe some size comparison here. So there's Indiana Jones. So, you know, it's not a big vehicle, but it doesn't need to be. I don't really have room to store big vehicles. I don't really know what I'm going to do when I start getting my G.I. Joe HasLabs in. I've got a HISS tank and a helicopter both on pre-order, and those things are going to be gigantic. Anyway, little vehicles like this I can handle. So, you know, it looks cool from every angle. The wings do fold up, so this is like a little play feature, I guess, which might even be useful when I'm storing this. I'm not sure where I'm going to put it, but if I'm putting it on a shelf with my figures, it might have to go on the shelf like this because that will buy me a little bit of extra space for my figures to stand around it. It does have some play features, so I already showed you the trigger here on the bottom. If you trigger that, the little claw goes like that. And earlier, I couldn't figure out how to open the canopy. I was just trying to pull it up. I didn't notice at the time there was a little piece of tape here that was holding it in place. Anyway, I pulled the tape off, and now I realize that when you push the bat symbol, the canopy pops open like so. So that's pretty cool. Another fun little feature. Inside there, you see some stickers to represent the control panels and all that sort of stuff. And it's for Batman. So, let's see if it might be a little tough to cram his cape in there. Yeah, it's a tight squeeze, but he's in there. And yeah, this is a really fun toy. Takes me back to my childhood. I like it a lot. I think I'm definitely going to have to get that Superman airplane as well. We'll stay in the DC realm, and we'll move a little quick on these guys, because I'm going to talk about some figures that you already talked about on the show. But I went into Walmart the other day, and they had all 4 figures for the Atrocitus Build-A-Figure for $15. So they were half price.
Yeah.
And I thought I could buy all 4 of these figures for $60 and I could build Atrocitus.
Yeah.
Now, when you bought these figures months ago, or how many, I don't know, maybe it was a year ago?
It was just before Christmas, because I opened them up.
So I really like Atrocitus. He's one of my favorite DC characters. I was kind of bummed that they made Atrocitus a Build-A-Figure, because I would have bought him on his own, but I didn't want to buy 4 other figures. But at $15, I was like, well, do I? But then I thought, I'm going to buy just Deathstorm, because Deathstorm comes with the head.
Yeah.
And I remember asking you when you got him, I was like, because you bought Batrocitus as well.
Yes.
Which is a stupid character that's a mashup of Atrocitus and Batman that came from the Metal storyline. So I thought, I know for a fact they have Batrocitus at Toys R Us for like $22. So rather than spend $45 buying the other 3 guys, I'll just buy Deathstorm. I'll put the head on Batrocitus. So I bought Deathstorm, but then I went over to Toys R Us and it was closed. And I was like, I'll come back tomorrow and get Batrocitus. But then I went home and I just thought, I wonder if anybody online has tried this before. And that's when I saw of somebody who did a review video, and they put the 2 figures side by side, and Atrocitus is like 10 feet tall compared. Yeah. So I'm like, his head's not going to fit on him. And I went back and I'm like, I'm sure Chad told me that they had the same body. And I went back and I watched the video and you were like, yeah, they have the same body from the neck down.
I assume, is that the same sculpt as Atrocitus from the neck down, or is it different?
It is.
And I was like, oh. So then
damn that Chad.
And the guy even said, like, the Atrocitus head doesn't fit on the Batrocitus body. Like, if you put it on there, it looks like he's kind of like a bobblehead. It looks a little oversized. And you have to put stick tack on it because it doesn't, like, latch into place. And And I'm like, all right, well, am I going to go buy Atrocitus and have this wonky Atrocitus, or am I going to go back and spend the $45 and buy those other 3 dickhead figures? So that's what I ended up doing. So I have got Atrocitus. So here he is. This is the character I like. Although, because I never saw this guy out of the package, because you brought him over when he was still all sealed, and you told me you opened him up. I did not know he was this big. And it's hard to tell that when you see him all broken up into pieces.
Yeah, he's very, very large.
He's too big.
Yeah.
One of my favorite... I don't think she did. One of my favorite figures from McFarlane's DC Multiverse so far has been his Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Except his Swamp Thing was about like this tall.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's way too tall. He can't interact with any of the other toys. And I don't remember Swamp Thing being that big. Now, when it comes to Atrocitus, I know he's not this big. I've read pretty much every comic book Atrocitus has appeared in. Sure, he's a big, muscular guy. I would accept that he's maybe 7 feet tall to Hal Jordan's like 5'11" or something. But he's not 10 feet tall. He's never been portrayed as that big.
Yeah. Mind you, in fairness to me, I think when I was saying he's the same, I had only seen online images.
Fair enough. I know, I'm not really holding you to account for that, but I do recall us having that conversation. So,
yeah.
Because I had thought that even then, when Atrocitus first came out, and he was full price at like $30. I'm like, well, maybe I should buy that and then buy the Atrocitus head. Anyway, so all this figure cost me $60. Is he worth it? I don't know. I actually wish he was smaller. I would have been happy to pay $60 for a smaller version, because then at least I'd feel like he blends in with my other DC figures. As it is now, he almost feels like a standalone toy, and I don't really like buying orphans like that, because it's like, well, what is he now? But besides that, I did have to buy these 4 other losers. So, I actually don't mind Deathstorm.
He's cool.
He's cool. So this is the heroic character Firestorm, who was dead. And these characters all come from a Green Lantern story called Blackest Night, where all these dead characters came back from the dead as Black Lanterns. So he's carrying his silver/Black Lantern. And he's got like a skull face and his flaming skull. He's got kind of a Ghost Rider-y look. And a black outfit. He's a pretty cool figure, even if I'm not a Firestorm fan. And then...
who's the next dickhead?
This one I don't love. This is Batman as a Black Lantern. And this one, I don't remember the storyline. Like, I read it at the time, and I thought Blackest Night was a really cool story. And I'd be totally down with characters that were dead coming back from the dead. But let's be honest, every superhero has been dead at one point or another and come back to life. Batman had been dead at one point. But he's back alive now, so I don't know how he still manages to come back from the dead. They might have explained it somehow. Maybe this is from another universe or something. But all that storyline aside, this happens to be a zombie version of Batman for all intents and purposes.
Anti-dead spray.
Seems like something you would have in his
utility
belt. But that's actually one of my biggest gripes about this. If I don't need a zombie Batman figure, but I'm not opposed to having one. But then I'd want it to look more like Batman. This guy's not wearing an outfit that I'm really familiar with. Like, he's got the pointy cape, and like he's a little stylized to look extra scary. But his outfit is really bland. Like, he doesn't have a yellow utility belt. His belt is just painted gray, which... it's kind of the same problem I had with the Supergirl figure we talked about in our prior video. It's just one solid color from like the neck down, and it makes for a really bland figure.
You'd want like the deceased version from the DC Direct line.
Yeah. Like, this is just... it's not a terrible figure.
No.
And I actually consider, after I've opened up Atrocitus, I was like, maybe I should take all these figures to Giant Robot Comics, because I know they buy secondhand toys. But they'd probably give me at most $5 for each of these guys. And I was like, do I like this Batman that little to get $5 for it, or might I hold on to it? I might need a zombie Batman at some point in the future. Which brings us to Zombie
The last dickhead.
Yeah. No, there's one more dickhead coming.
Oh, right, yes. My bad. I forgot.
I like this one. Because this looks like a zombie Superman. Like, his face is all sunken in. His
nose is missing.
He's got a proper, like, zombie face. Yeah, his nose is missing. And the outfit looks cool. Because, sure, it's not Superman's red and blue, but Superman has worn a black outfit like this before. And it works for me. And again, I don't know. Superman was not dead when the storyline came out, so I can't remember if this is supposed to be the zombie Superman from Earth 2 or some bullshit like that, but whatever. It's just zombie Superman. That's not too bad.
At least his cape is nice.
Yeah, I like the cape is in 3 separate pieces. It's soft, it's rubbery.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't hinder his movement because it's all chopped up like that. I think it's a pretty cool figure. So even though I never would have bought those on their own, being forced to buy them, not so bad. But then this guy here, if there's one figure I would trade in, this was the one non-zombie figure from the wave. This is Kyle Rayner, the Green Lantern. I don't mind Kyle. He's probably like my 4th favorite Green Lantern.
Not even top 3.
But I just don't like this figure of him.
Who is your favorite Green Lantern? Are you an OG Hal Jordan or are you John Stewart?
No, I like Hal Jordan. And then I probably like some of the other like deeper cuts. Like I really like Soranik Natu, who's like Sinestro's daughter. I don't know how to say any of their friggin' names because I've never heard them uttered aloud. But like the lizardy guy, I'm forgetting his name right now. Corin Vath or something. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot of these weird characters. Stell, the robotic Green Lantern. I like a lot of the weird ones. But even for the human ones, I probably like John Stewart and Guy Gardner ahead of Kyle. Anyway, he's fine. I do have a Kyle Rayner figure in my collection from DC Direct. I just don't like the way this one looks.
Yeah, he's got really red lips.
He's just got a weird face. It's like he doesn't have a nose.
Like me. Dirt face.
I do like his green sword. Because, the Green Lantern can construct things out of his ring. And translucent green, that's how his accessories should be. I like that. What I don't like is he also comes with his translucent Green Lantern. But he doesn't have any alternate hands. So he either has to hold his sword or his lantern. You can't have him do both because this hand is a closed fist. And, he didn't come with another alternate hand. So that's another strike against this figure. So
that's a struggle of the DC McFarlane Multiverse.
So here's a closer look at the 4 figures that I had to buy from the Blackest Night line in order to build my Atrocitus. I'm not really going to talk about these guys in detail because we did talk about them a little bit back when Chad bought them last year. So I'll just give you a quick close look. So here's Kyle Rayner. I think his face looks kind of goofy. His lips are a little too red. It doesn't seem believable that like a human nose would really fit in that mask. I don't know. I actually really hated this figure when I bought it, and I thought I'm definitely going to try and trade this in to Giant Robot comic books, even though I thought I might hold on to the other ones. But I'll be honest, in the time I've spent with this figure, it has grown on me some, just in that I do like this texture. It's so different from any other Green Lantern in my collection. It adds a level of realism to it. Just that texture, you get it, and it's two different, or maybe it's not two different textures, I was going to say, but I think the paint looks really nice. I think that green with this black actually looks really good. The symbol is really crisp. I do like that he's got those translucent green accessories. So this figure, if I had to give it a score, it's still pretty low, but I don't know if it's worth getting rid of. It only cost me $15. And yeah, so I do wish he could hold both accessories. So like an alternate hand would have been nice so he could hold both of his things. But yeah, he's okay. And then we've got Zombie Superman here. Again, I really like that detail on his face. I'm not really sure what the little tiara is on his head. But as I said when I was talking to Chad, it's been many years since I've read this storyline. I don't think this is supposed to be the actual Superman back from the dead, because Superman was not dead at that time. This is probably, Superman from an alternate reality, or maybe it was a Superboy or something. I don't really recall. But regardless, just to have it in my collection as a zombie Superman, essentially, I do like the torn cape. He looks good. And the Batman, he's not bad either. He's got that scary zombie face. But this is what I was talking about with his bat costume. It's just a little too plain. I wish this was painted. And, it's just, I don't know. I don't really love the curling up of the cape in the corners and stuff. It's a little McFarlane-esque, which I am a McFarlane fan, but I don't know. It's just not something Batman usually has, so. Anyway, this figure is okay. It's like next to Kyle. It's the bottom of the barrel for this wave, and I never would have bought this figure if not for the Build-A-Figure piece. And I never would have bought Firestorm, who they call Deathstorm here, because I really know nothing about Firestorm. I have the old Superpowers figure of him, and I might have read some Firestorm comic books when he shows up in big events, like the Crisis events and stuff, but I've never bought a Firestorm comic book or anything like that. I really don't know much about this guy. And even the concept, what I do understand about him is that he's like kind of two guys that live in the same body and talk to each other. It just never really interested me. But this guy is a cool figure. If you just look at it objectively and don't worry about the character of it all, like this is a flaming black skeleton guy. And he looks cool. He's got his lantern there. So yeah, not too shabby. So now let's talk about Atrocitus. So I've kept Atrocitus, well, I've got him here, but I kept Kyle Rayner out here because these guys, they're enemies in the comic books. They fight, and I don't recall ever seeing Atrocitus this big, towering over them. Like, sure, he's a bigger guy. It would be like if I fought Hulk Hogan or somebody. Sure, he's going to be bigger than me, but not unrealistically so. So I don't really understand the sizing of this guy. Now, I could be wrong, but like I said, I think I've read pretty much almost every appearance of Atrocitus here, and I don't ever recall seeing him that big. Now, on the other hand, I've got here in the middle, these are Atrocitus and Kyle Rayner from, this one I think is from Mattel, and this one is from DC Direct. And I have quite a few DC figures from those other companies. I like those figures because they were in the 6-inch scale. I like that scale. I like this Kyle Rayner because he's done in the Ed McGuinness art style, which is one of my favorites. But it always bothered me that the Atrocitus I had in my collection from Mattel, he looked kind of small compared to my DC Direct figures, because the majority of my collection was DC Direct. Now, even if I had other Mattel figures, I don't know if he would have seemed as small, but he doesn't have much bulk to him at all. I think he probably would have been on par with the other Mattel figures, and he's kind of small when compared to DC Direct figures. So that always kind of bothered me. I always wanted a bigger, bulkier Atrocitus, which is what prompted me to buy this guy in the first place. But now I think the pendulum has swung too far in the opposite direction. And not only does he dwarf all the figures in my collection from before, but even the newer, like 7-inch scale McFarlane figures, which, you know, these figures are too tall in general. It annoys me that I can't really merge them with my old DC figures because Todd McFarlane made them an inch taller for some stupid reason. But, you know, even amongst them, Atrocitus is just too big. Anyway, enough about that. Let's take a closer look at the figure itself. So yeah, I can hardly get this guy in frame because he's so big. But, like, he's cool. I like the detail on his face. You know, he's big and he's scary just like he's supposed to be. Again, I do like these textures that McFarlane is putting into the figures. It adds a level of realism rather than just being, say, this, like, slick back spandex that this Atrocitus is wearing. So yeah, this texture gives it more of a real world feel. You know, I like everything about this figure, the way it poses, you know, the way it feels, the way it looks. I just wish it was a little bit smaller, but I said I was going to stop talking about that. So anyway, cool figure. I like it a lot. So I have a couple more DC Multiverse, actually. So I went to GameStop last Friday. And our GameStops always have these things where they call them $5 Fridays. And my experience is this stuff always sells it immediately. There's probably people that like wait outside of every store and scoop up all the stuff for $5. So I don't even try. I've got a day job. I can't go there on Fridays and wait around. Anyway, I was there on Friday in the middle of the afternoon. They had a big bin full of like $5 figures. And I was like, I guess I could grab some of these for $5. So one of them was Superman in said black and silver outfit we were just saying that he wears sometimes.
He's a nice figure.
Yeah, I actually do like this Superman. It is based on like Dan Jurgens was writing Superman at the time, and I'm not going to pretend to know it back and forwards because I did read some of the stories and I think I actually cleared some of those comic books out of my collection. But when DC relaunched the New 52, which was 2011. They basically rebooted their whole universe to make their characters younger and hipper and not have so much continuity for new readers to have to deal with. So Superman went from being married to Lois Lane with a kid to being single and young and naive and all this stuff again. But then what was weird is Dan Jurgens, who had written the book before the New 52 reboot, he had a huge following for what he had been doing with married Superman. So they let him kind of continue his storyline as like a separate universe. So even though the whole universe ceased to exist and it turned into the New 52, Superman and Lois Lane and their son continued to exist from the old universe. And I read some of those stories, and during that time, because he couldn't look like Superman, because there already was another Superman flying around, he grew the full beard and he went into the black outfit, and this is kind of what he looked like. And I think it's a nice sculpt on this figure and everything. He comes with a cool flight stand, as you can see, so I can display him flying.
Yeah, he's really nice.
Now, the ramifications of him existing, though, always kind of bothered me. And I didn't read enough DC comic books to know if they ever really addressed it properly. Because when they did the reboot of New 52, and they said, these are all the characters that you've been reading for 20, 30, 40 years potentially, except let's just pretend they've only been around for 5 years. And so they're all younger and all that sort of stuff. And you're like, okay. But then this Superman still existed from the old universe who had all of his old memories. And that leads you to believe, well, if he's around, like, is there another Batman and another Flash? And the new Superman from the New 52 actually died. And this this Superman stayed around. And you're like, so what Batman am I reading now? Am I reading the Batman from past history who just has his mind erased? Which is what we were led to believe with the New 52. But then the Superman throws all that into question. And I think that's kind of the reason why I got rid of those books, is it just was driving me too nuts to, like... It made the whole DC universe just make less sense to me. And they've just recently rebooted the DC universe again, and I'm enjoying some of the books, but we are running into this whole characters, their growth has gone away.
Yeah.
Like, I just read the second issue of the new Green Lantern comic book. Yeah. And the first issue I thought was pretty promising. The second issue I thought was a dip in quality because Hal Jordan seems like he's a brash young dickhead again, and it's just like, this guy's been around forever. He's learned, he's grown, he's been through hardships, he's died and come back. Like, but they're writing him as if he's a brand new character, and it's just like, this isn't the Hal Jordan I want to read about. Maybe they'll get new fans, but it kind of turns me off that he seems like he's not the character I know. Anyway, we won't go down that whole road. The other figure I bought for $5 is this one here. Now, this one's kind of weird in that this figure is called Ink. Now, what this figure is, and by the way, I've never watched Batman Beyond. I always thought the idea was kind of cool. I've read some comic books with Batman Beyond, but I never watched the animated series.
I can lend you the Blu-rays.
Probably not. Okay. Probably not at this point.
Oh, fine.
But the thing is, like, so they did a Batman Beyond figure.
Yeah.
And if you know Batman Beyond, he looks just like this, except he's solid black with a big red bat on his chest. And he is supposed to be the Batman of the future, Terry McGinnis, from a world where Batman is now an old man and he's kind of Terry's mentor. It's kind of a cool concept. And it's got its fan base for sure. And anyway, so I don't really recall seeing the Batman Beyond figure around. And even if I had, I don't know if I would have pulled the trigger on it because I'm not a huge Batman Beyond fan, and I wasn't really buying these multiverse figures. Anyway, when I found this one for $5, I was like, okay, well, this looks like Batman Beyond, except he's got a blue bat instead of a red one, so what's the deal with this guy? Ink is apparently one of his main villains, and she is a female, who is basically a blob of ink who can change shape and turn into whatever. So I assume this happened in the cartoon series where Ink took the shape of Batman Beyond. So I imagine that's probably why this figure is gathering dust at GameStops, because people that know Batman Beyond know this is a chick and she's an imposter, and so they won't buy it for that reason. Me, I don't really care. When I put this on my shelf, as far as I'm concerned, this is Batman Beyond in a blue outfit. I'm like, it's not Ink. But I actually quite like the paint job. Like, it's not dark black like he's supposed to. It's kind of
like a bluish.
It's like a navy blue with like a black wash in it. And the wings are especially cool. It's almost like a camouflage between black and blue, and you'll see it when I do a close-up. But I think it's a pretty cool figure. And it's nothing about it is feminine. It's not like they gave her lips or breasts or anything like that. It's the Batman Beyond figure, just painted with blue instead of red, and they called it ink. So it works for me as Batman Beyond, and for $5, why the hell not?
That's a steal.
So here's a closer look at Superman and Batman Beyond /ink. I'm going to be really quick here because my video is now over an hour. Plus, my neighbor has decided to start mowing his lawn, and I don't know if you're going to hear that on the mic. So, anyway, Batman looks pretty cool. Looks like he's supposed to, or she is supposed to, whatever. And I think you can kind of see how it almost looks like the paint, not just that he's painted with a wash, but it almost looks like the plastic used was like black and blue kind of swirled together, and it's like molded right into him. I like the way it looks. And then the pattern on the wings, as I was saying earlier, it's almost like a camo pattern. It kind of reminds me of the Cobra hang glider from back in the day. Maybe I'm misremembering that wrong, but I think it was kind of a blue and black camo. So anyway, this is a solid figure. For $5, sure. And then this Superman, I think he looks great. Like you can see he's got that flight stand. It does a pretty good job of holding them up. You know, McFarlane actually does surprisingly really nice flight stands compared to some other companies. It's got a little, a very kind of solid clicking grip, so you can kind of hear that. So you can size it for your figure. Plus this here holds it really well. Like I just had some similar stands out here for my Black Hole figures, and they were much more spindly and fidgety, and they would fall over. Those bases from McFarlane are really nice. Anyway, I think Superman looks great. I bought a few Superman figures from McFarlane recently. I bought the Hush Superman, and I bought the War World Superman. And I think this is the best looking Superman as far as head sculpts go, for sure. It's almost a shame he's got the beard. Like, I do like the beard, but, it's kind of weird that my best looking Superman is this version in the black and silver as opposed to a red and blue classic Superman. Anyway, I like this guy a lot. I think he looks great. I think he had alternate hand accessories, but that was about it. And yeah, not a whole lot more to say. Pretty cool. Yeah. So I think that is everything I wanted to talk about. We covered a lot of ground, and I know this was one of those episodes where I ranted and you barely got a word in.
I just didn't have a lot of new stuff at the moment. It's all on pre-order.
Yep. I've got more stuff coming too, so we'll be back with new toys. And, we shot 3 episodes back-to-back tonight. So it's going to take me a while to get these all edited and up. So hopefully by the time you've seen this, we'll have a whole bunch of new stuff, and we'll be ready to shoot another one.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so thank you very much for watching.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave us your comments, and until next time, keep collecting.
Ciao.